Alright, welcome back everyone. So the code we have written so far was for the mobile version, and today we are going to talk about the desktop version. So for the desktop version, let's start by creating the CSS for the navigation tag. So currently the navigation tag, as you can see, it takes up the whole viewport, and that is not what we want. What we want is a fixed width. So let's code this now. Alright, so to do that, we go into our style.css, and then we are going to say, first of all, we are going to open up a media query. So let's say add media, then only screen, and then open up brackets and set the width to, let's say, 700 pixels. And then open up brackets again. And what this code means is that everything we will put in here is going to be displayed when the width of the viewport is bigger than 700 pixels. So let me show you. If we, for example, say body, and then we are going to say background color red. As you can see, the background is red, but if I shrink down the display below 700 pixels, it's going to be white again. So like I said, everything we are going to apply in here is going to be displayed as soon as the viewport reaches 700 pixels. Alright, so now let's delete this since we don't want a red background color. Let's select the header and then the nav tag in the header. Let's open up brackets and let's simply define a width for that. So let's say width 1100 pixels. And now if we open this up, as you can see, the nav bar is centered and it has a fixed width, which is exactly what we want. Awesome. So let's move on to the hero section. So what do we have here? Let's check it out quickly. Basically what we have is our title, and then comes a paragraph. So this is right underneath the title. And what we want for desktop is a 2-column grid. So how do we get one? That's fairly easy. To do this, we can use Css Grid for that. So let's again copy the media query because we are going to use the same for our hero section. Let's open up and close brackets, and then we are going to select the hero, then we select the wrapper, open up brackets again, and now we are going to say on display grid. Then let's define our columns. Let's say grid template columns 1fr 1fr. So what are those FRs? That's pretty simple as well. Let me explain to you. So first of all, FR stands for fraction. So if we set this div to display grid, we're able to define a column. If we don't have a specific width how wide this column should be, we can simply say 1fr and 1fr. This command will take up the whole space right here and it will divide it by the fractions. So since we have said 1fr and 1fr, CSS Grid is going to divide this whole div in two equally spaced columns. So instead of saying one fraction and another fraction, we can also say 50% and 50%. This is going to be the exact same effect. So let's save it now. And as you can see, we have two equally wide columns. So if we inspect this, there are our columns. Awesome. Now the next thing that we need to do is to vertical align these elements. Because as you can see, if you take a look, the second column is aligned to the top. And we don't want that. We want it to be in the middle. So let's say align items. And then we simply say center. And now it's looking good. All right, next let's apply a margin. So let's apply a 12 pixel margin and then we say auto. Perfect, looking good. All right, now we have our 2-column grid, but there's one thing missing. So let me open up this hero section. And as you can see, we have the same problem that we had with our navbar. So the hero section takes up the whole width of the viewport. And again, we don't want that. We only want a fixed width. So let's do this quickly by applying a fixed width to the wrapper. And actually, we can do this for every wrapper on the page. So let's simply say wrapper. And then we are going to say width 1100 pixels. So the exact same width that we have applied to our navbar. And if we open this up, as you can see, this looks pretty good. But now there's some gap missing right here between the two elements. So let's simply say grid gap. And then we say 16 pixels. Awesome. That's it for our hero section. Now let's use the same technique for our articles. So we have 4 articles and let me show you what we want to achieve. So as you remember, this is our design. So we are going to create a CSS grid. And this grid is going to be more complicated, but bear with me, I will explain everything. So how many columns do we have here? 2, right? 1 and 2. So how many rows we have here? Well, technically 2. But since these are not aligned, we can basically say we have 6 columns. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this must be very complicated to code, and it could be, but there's a very neat trick we can use with our CSS. So let's go back to our editor. Now again, let's select the media query. And let's apply this for our articles. So let's say articles, and then we are going to select the wrapper because that's where all the articles are in. And then we say display grid. Perfect. And now let's define the columns. So we say grid template columns, and this is going to be 2 fractions. Then we do the same for our rows. So let's say grid template rows, and this is going to be 6 fractions. So let's say 1 fr, 1 fr, 1 fr. But I show you a small little trick. So instead of writing this out, we can simply say repeat, and then we say how many times we want to repeat something. So 6 times, and what we want to repeat. So 1 fraction. And then this one has the exact same effect, and we can do this for the columns as well. So instead of 6, we say 2. And now we have the exact same effect. So this is still looking weird, but bear with me, I will explain everything. So now let me show you the magic trick. Let's use something which is called grid template areas. So let's say grid template areas. So what is this good for? Well, we can simply name our grids and we can tell the browser how to lay them down. So let me show you. So we have said that article 2 is taking up 2 rows and article 1 is going to take up 4 rows. So let me show you a picture. This is the first row. So it's going to be article 2 for the first column and article 1 for the second one. So what about row number 2? The same. Article 1 for the second column and article 2 for the first column. You get the idea, right? But how do we code this? Well, we simply name these areas. First of all, let's define our articles. So let's select the first article, and this is going to be the grid area number 1. So we can say grid area 1. Then for number 2, we say grid area number 2. Now we do the same for the other ones. Right, so now as you can see, our article section is completely gone, but we have named our articles and we have named the grid area. So what can we do with this CSS command, grid template areas now? That's easy. We're simply going to draw out our grid. So we have 2 columns and 6 rows. So basically we can say first column and then second column. But this is not going to do anything, right? Because how does the browser know which is the first column and which article is the second column? So instead of naming them first column and second column, we simply name them in the same way we have set up the grid area. So in the first column and the first row, we want our first article, which has the name of grid area 1. So instead of saying first column, we simply say 1. And now for the second column, we simply say 2. This is the place where we are going to have our second article. And that's the first row. Now let's do this for the rest of the articles. So row number 2 is going to be again 1 and 2. All right. Row number 3 is going to be article 1. And the second column is going to be article 4. So now articles section has already changed a little bit. Now let's move on and let's again say the first column is going to be article 1. And the second one is going to be article 4. Then the next row is going to be article 3 and 4. And again article 3 and 4. And if I save it, as you can see, we have our articles in the same way as we had them right here. The only thing that we need to do is to add a gap. So let's do this quickly. Now let's add a margin of 0 to the articles. So let's say article, then we say margin 0. All right, why do we do that? We don't need a margin anymore because we will add a grid gap. So let's add a grid gap right here and let's say 16 pixels. Oh, I forgot the colon right here after margin. So let's save it. And now it's looking good. So now we have the exact same design that we wanted to. Awesome. So in the next video, we are going to finish up the desktop with the newsletter, the Instagram gallery, and the footer. And for now, thanks a lot for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.